Om Namo Narayana, Jai Swami Narayan. Welcome back. Today we are talking about cults. And this is going to be a great show. But it's going to be very different because I have been trying to get this out into the world, but the world does not want me to stream it. I tried a new encoder program the other day and I was streaming it. And when I looked at it afterwards, it was so out of sync and so lagging, I had to take it down. So I thought, okay, fine, I'll just put up a new visual. I've done this before. It's been so hot. It's like 80 plus degrees, and whatever it is outside, my apartment is probably warmer, that my computer kept freezing because it was just overheating so much. I like the video program. I would delete a little bit of the video clip, and then it would crash. Okay, open it back up. Have to delete it again, save it quickly, then it would crash. It was just insane. And I've had to move my computer over by the fan. Finally, I got the program together. This wonderful program. So happy. Broadcast, no sound. Broadcast again, and the sound vanished halfway through. So we're trying this on a fourth time because I think the gods want me to stream. Maybe not. Maybe people hate me and you don't want me to stream because technology is not being my friend. So anyways, got a great show. If you want to talk about computer help, I use Streamlabs desktop and Logitech, the C920, and I could use some help if anyone wants to reach out and could maybe give me some pointers. I can't like connect my Logitech camera to the YouTube platform itself, and I've tried using OBS Studio, but that doesn't connect to YouTube at all. So, anyways, I could desperately use some help, but we're going to try today to stream. And so now, go ahead. We're going to go ahead into a talk for an hour on what is a cult, answering all your questions and just clarifying the topic better than ever. Or at least this will get you started. And then in the next episode we're going to be discussing cults again with some recommendations I have. I don't know if I'll put that out today. It may be next week, but look forward to this. These are two great episodes I think will be really informative. So yeah, we're going to roll with it now, and I'm going to pass this over to my cat, who you have seen before, Fiona. So with that, I wish you the best. Hang out for this hour-long show. I hope you enjoy it. Feel free to comment. And until I get my streaming together and whatever, and I hope this works. I so hope this works. All right. I'll catch you later.
Jai Shri Krishna, welcome back. Today we're diving into something that is a huge topic, and we're just going to be skimming the surface. That is cults. You know, your regular, everyday religious cult, which scares so many people away from religion and hurts so many others. Yeah, huge topic. Something I've been really wanting to dig into more for a while. And I found this really great article by a friend of mine that just does a nice introduction to cults. There's no getting away from cults. Anyone who digs into religion, you hit cults at some point. Either you're defending yourself against them, going, no, we're not a cult. Or maybe you're in a group that has cult-like qualities, but it's not. Or you are full on in a cult. Or maybe someone you know has joined a cult and you're worried about them. Or maybe they've joined a cult and told you they're not a cult. It gets very confusing. And today, hopefully, I can bring some clarity to what is a cult. Very simple question, but sometimes it's answered horribly. I have literally seen people talk about cults and they're talking out of their ass. They have no idea. They literally have no clue what they're talking about. They probably saw a little meme on Facebook and decided that was everything they needed to know. It's so much bigger than that. I have studied cults over my decades of being interested in religion. Cults have been something really fascinating to me. I have investigated them. I have been a part of groups which have been cult-like, but not cults. I've been a part of groups that have been called cults, but aren't cults. And I've also been in a cult, and I talk about this on this channel, a group which I believe is 100% a cult. And if it isn't, it does a damn fine job of imitating what a cult is like. This is going to be a big episode, as I said. So there was some things I wanted to talk about, some books I wanted to recommend, and I just realized it would probably make this too long. So the next episode we do, I'm going to recommend a few books. Actually, I'm going to recommend 3 books and then one you should avoid. Before we dig into this reading that I want to do, I want to mention one clarification. There are cults, and we will find out what those are in the next hour. But there are also groups that might be a cult if they did some things. They may have some traits of a cult, but having some traits of something doesn't necessarily make you a cult. What they often have, though, which is interchanged with cult by people who just don't seem to be aware that they're 2 different things, is cults of personality. They are different. A cult of personality and a cult are not the same thing. Kind of like how people seem to mix the word religion and Christianity up, thinking that, well, if you're talking about Christianity, you're talking about religion. If you're talking about religion, you're talking about Christianity. No, they're 2 separate words. Cult of personality is completely different. It may or may not be a cult. I'll give you an example. Everyone likes to talk about, in America, the cult around Donald Trump and how the alt-right, the conservatives, are a cult. No, they're not. Not in any way, shape, or form. There may be some people who have cult-like behavior, and you might find a group here and a group here and a group here, but most conservatives are not in a cult. They break pretty much most of the rules of what cult behavior is. What they have is a cult of personality around Donald Trump, for those who support Trump. I'm a Vivek Ramaswamy supporter, official supporter of him for president. I think he's the way, so I'm not part of the cult of personality. But they mix that up. They say, oh, it's a cult of personality, it's a cult. Well, no, it isn't. Now, the alt-left, though, tends to demonstrate behaviors that are not cult of personality. There's no one person on the left, but they tend to have behaviors that are very much like a cult. And that may piss a lot of you off hearing this, but I'm being very specific with my terms where I'm saying alt-left and alt-right. There's a lot of people on the left who aren't, a lot of people on the right who aren't. I'm just talking about the extreme groups. And I don't really think the extreme right is a cult. That's a cult of personality. Please, let's differentiate that now and not let's mix words up. Let's be better than that. Sorry, that's my rant that I was dreaming about last night. I was like, I have to make this point. We're not going to talk about Donald Trump again. We're going to talk about more interesting things that may or may not be specific to Sanatana Dharma. Actually, the writing I have is not, but it completely applies. So let's dive into this writing that I'm hinting at. The reason you're here, and that is I'm going to read an essay on the Patheos website, PATHEOS.com, which has a lot of writings from different spiritual groups, whatever. And a friend of mine has been brought into that world and is now writing for them. And this might be her, I don't know if this is one of her first articles for them. So I wanted to read it. It's a really good article. And there's a link down below to it, or there will be after I broadcast this. I'll put a link up so you can read this yourself. So this is an article called What Makes a Cult a Cult? It is on the selection of the Patheos website of progressive Christianity, but this is not really a progressive Christian thing. It is much bigger than that. It applies to everything, and that's why I wanted to read it, because it's really good. The woman who wrote it is Dr. Ann Marino. She lives down south. She is a minister, Apostolic Fellowship International Ministries, Spitfire Ministries. She's also a prolific author, guest speaker, pastor, teacher. She runs a university and does a lot of stuff, and I'm barely hitting the list of all the things she does. I can't even remember them after all these years, because I've known her for a little less than 20 years now, and she and I have done things together in the past. I've written some stuff for her, and she supported me, and we actually did a show together on yoga. If you go back to my live stream, episode 22, I was a guest on a podcast of hers. We talked about American versus Hindu yoga. And we've done a few other shows that will be coming up on this stream. I'm going to rebroadcast them here, but there's no visuals, so I'm making visuals for them now. She is an amazing woman. You can go on Amazon and find her books. She's a great teacher, one of the most hardcore, and I'm blanking on a better word, hardcore Christian theologians that I've ever met. She knows her Bible, she knows her history, she knows her stuff. She's the woman you would choose if you wanted a debate between two people. I would choose her in a minute. I would pay her to be in a debate because I'm like, yeah, even though I support the other side, my money's on her because she's amazing. Anyways, she's really great. We're going to read an essay by her. So let's dive into this essay now. I've done enough introductory talking. I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to stop and make comments. This is What Makes a Cult a Cult from August 16th, 2023 by Dr. Ann Marino. So she writes, "It's not uncommon to hear the term cult frequently thrown around today. The term is often used casually to identify a group that one dislikes for various reasons. Whether it is unconventional doctrine, the way members seem to follow a leader no matter what they do, or aggressive evangelism techniques, people often think a group is a cult based on personal criteria rather than actual standards." Gotta pause there. I see this all the time. This goes back to what I said about cult of personality versus cult. People don't understand the differences in definition. People don't study cults. And those who don't, they may not realize there is quite a world of cult study out there, particularly in the last couple decades since Jim Jones and the late 1970s, when there was a lot of lawsuits of trying to get people out of cults, and you had the wave of kidnappings, basically, for lack of a better word, people being kidnapped out of a cult and being detransitioned out of that, and I'm blanking on the word right now, but I've totally lost it. But you know exactly what I mean. There's been a whole world of cult study, and what has come out of that study is authoritative lists going, here are 12 things that is needed to be a full-on cult. If you have one or two of these things, you're not a cult. For example, and they're really generic things. They're really broad. They're not super specific, and they're not like all Christian or whatever. Anyone could fall into these. So, for example, one of them is if you disagree with the cult, you will be banished, or you will be silenced. Everyone has the same opinion. People who join the cult are told to separate from their family. That could apply to political parties. It could apply to religious groups of any religion. And every religion has cults. 100% of religions have cults, unless it's like a really, really small religion with only a few followers. And then maybe they might have a cult of personality, but I've yet to see a major religion that does not have cults. Jewish, Muslim, Buddhist, Hindu, you name it. We all do. So this list, or the lists that have been developed, apply to every religion. If you see a list that is like 2 or 3 things, no, that's someone's personal criteria. That is not someone who studied cults. If you see lists that go, well, if anyone doesn't believe in Buddha, they must be a cult. Nope, that's personal criteria again. It's not approved by scholars who have studied religion. And yes, I know sometimes we dump on scholars today, but that's today. 30 years ago, if things were different in the academia world, and they did some great stuff. My next video, where I talk about the books I think you should get or the books you should avoid, I will be discussing this particular topic more, the personal criteria versus the actual standards. So check out that next video. But let's keep reading what Leanne says. She goes, standards for cult criteria do exist. It's not all a matter of opinion. In the 1950s, American psychiatrist and author Robert J. Lifton did a study on the Korean War and prisoners of war and civilians held in Chinese prisons after 1951. He also studied Chinese intellectuals who were subject to brainwashing as a result of their university status. Through his study, Mr. Lifton identified 8 different points of control that relate to the psychological terminology we recognize in cults. The process informally known as brainwashing, is properly classified as thought reform. These specific actions influence people's thinking patterns, sense of independence, and ideals. Such makes an individual willing to forsake their individuality, which is kind of related to identity, Freudian slip, and freedom to belong to a larger group. His findings are found in the book Thought Reform and Psychology of Totalism, a study of brainwashing in China. I've not read that book, never heard of it until now, but he's right. There are points. And this study, I don't know if it was the first one or not, but it certainly is an early one, has been expanded upon, as I've said. Yeah, I think that let's move on. Lifton's 8 points, plus some subheadings that fall under the 8 main points, are what define a cult. I'm going to pause here and say, as I just said, he's not the... Sorry, they're doing work outside. If you hear trucks and all, they're completely digging up the road and just putting in new pipes. At least they're not jackhammering today. That's been atrocious to my cats. So sorry about any extraneous sounds. So Lifton's 8 points are not the end-all be-all. Leanne here is saying that this is what defines a cult, and I would agree, but I would also say that the points have been expanded upon in other studies beyond his. But his is a good foundation. If you're working with him, I think, for lack of a better word, you will be safe in figuring out what a cult is. Society has changed a lot since the 1950s, and so I think some of these other lists that Leanne may not even know about, which is why she didn't mention them here, the ones I know about are all via Hindu and Sanatana Dharma authors and writing, which she may not be so familiar with, and that's fine. Maybe she can check out the next episode. Sorry, bad joke. I have a soundtrack for that. Let's see. Yeah, sorry. Anyways, as I said, if you go with Lifton, you'll be safe, and you should be safe, not ignorant. But let's keep going. Contrary to popular belief, odd or unusual doctrine is not what makes a cult. Cults are also not the result of refusing to be Christian. Traditional Hinduism, Islam, Buddhism, and Judaism are not cults, and none of them adhere to the Christian perspective. A cult can be a religious entity. It also can be atheistic, sociological, or political in nature. Cult groups, regardless of doctrinal ideology, all have some semblance of these 8 points. Groups with 4 points of thought reform or more fall into the high control category. I'll pause here. As I said, just because a cult is open to everything. Anyone who says, like, you're not a believer in Jesus, you must be a cult, this is wrong. Because it's not based on this study, it's not based on any other study. No authoritative study agreed upon by a lot of people. And in this case, this is how cult study works. And it's a good history of scholarship. No, it's wrong. You're absolutely wrong. Now let's say you do define cults as in can be identified by not believing in Jesus. And you'll see why I choose Jesus in a second. Okay, that's fine. So, let's see. Buddhists, cult. Hindus, cult. Muslims, cult-like, I guess. Well, actually, Hindus and Buddhists kind of do believe in Jesus, but not the Jesus of the Christian Bible, so they are definitely cult. Atheists, cult. Now, turn that around and talk about, the alt-left or the alt-right. Well, if your definition of cult is not believing in Jesus, which is 1 point, not 8, or let's say you don't believe in Jesus and you don't believe in the Bible, so there's 2 points. That makes you a cult. Well, then the alt-left. This is where these personal definitions run into problems. If you say, well, the alt-left, let's say, are they a cult? Well, we have 2 points, Bible and Jesus. Well, the alt-left, they're yoga folks, they're New Age folks, they're progressive Christian folks that are somewhat off the Bible sometimes, they're this, they're whatever. Certainly, they don't believe in the Bible, and their views of Jesus are often much different. So yeah, the alt-left, they are a cult. Let's turn to the alt-right, which I assume if you're making this definition, you probably are on. Well, all Trumpsters, are they all Christians? No. Do all Trumpsters believe in the Bible are all right-wingers, and right-winger could be libertarian. Do they all believe in the Bible? No, I can vouch for that. I've met atheist libertarians. So wait a minute, if you don't believe in the Bible and you don't believe in Jesus, guess you're a cult. So now suddenly, well, I guess Trumpsters are now a cult. So wait a minute, but I'm on the right. How can my group be a cult? Because your definition is crap. So if you have these specific definitions, they may work. Oh, when we're talking about non-Christians that I don't like, but suddenly you take this word cult and you use it for other groups like political things, you now have to create a brand new definition of cult because your definition is not based on anything solid like Lifton's 8 points. So these people who just talk like this and they don't understand and they're just using 2 or 3 points. And I saw this guy on Facebook. He did an entire 45-minute rant. I couldn't even get to the whole thing on how anything was a cult that didn't get 3 points. That was it, just 3 points. It's like, no, it doesn't work like that because once you talk about other things that are, as Leanne says, atheistic, sociological, or political, your definition completely fails. Now you are a cult. Now you literally, because of your 3 points, you are now making yourself a cult. And that's really embarrassing. So that's why I'm doing this show, to clarify so you can have good discussions on cults. I won't do that again because that wasn't a good joke. None of my jokes are good. I don't want to say they are because then I have to live up to them. Anyways, let's keep reading. I offer this article because I feel the term cult is used too loosely. Yes. Such is a serious accusation and should be based in fact, not opinion. This article serves educational purposes only and offers no analysis of any specific group as being a cult. Examples provided are to illustrate the concepts addressed, not to label any said group as a cult. It's so great reading that, and that's why we're doing this. So here we go. Anyways, yes, this is it. We use the term too loosely. Let's keep going. Milieu, M-I-L-I-E-U, is a French word meaning around. Thus, milieu control is the control of what's around a cult member relating to outside voices. Cults control the amount of communication one has within the cult atmosphere. For this reason, some, but not all, cults live together. It limits the members' access to mainline television, radio, news, social media, and other people. Members are often encouraged to break ties with those not in the group. Disconnection knows no limits. Members must disconnect from families and friends alike. Why? Because outsiders won't understand or support the level of awareness one will reach as a member of the group. To go back to the social thing, do Trumpsters all live together? No. Does Donald Trump tell people, does Donald Trump limit the access of social media? No. He tells people to watch this stuff. He tells people to watch CNN, and then he says it lies, but he doesn't stop you from watching. He doesn't stop anyone from doing anything or thinking anything. Are Trumpsters told to break ties with anyone who's not a Trumpster? No, absolutely not. Conservatives just kind of want to probably be left alone, but they don't really care what you think. So you see how already this definition of cult that Leanne is giving us, which is based on Lifton's 8 points that she's pulling from, already debunks one major conversation we have on cults. She's giving us some brief points here on control. And these points are what is required for one to be labeled as a cult. Okay? Let's just go over this together and then we'll keep reading because this is just so important to me. Some cults, not all, so you may not have all these things, but these are common to groups that have been found to be a cult. They live together. They limit members' access to the media. And that often can include books. I've seen groups that said, don't read any book not written by the leader. The cult limits access to other people not in the group. That is a huge one. The limiting of access to people is a major red flag. Breaking ties with those not in the group, which may include your family and friends and everybody. That is also a huge red flag. You need to break away. And I'm going to go back to the social thing. I have literally heard alt-leftists, and again, I remember I'm saying alt-left. We're talking like former Antifa members being told to spurn their family because they're not Antifa. It should make you think next time you hear this, oh, well, the alt-left's not. Well, wait a minute. And if you want to know where I'm citing, I can find some interviews that will vouch for this. Disconnection knows no limits. You see, when you're in a cult, the idea is all about this person or this idea or this thing. So disconnecting, they want that because it's all about this. They don't care about anything else, and neither should you. And no one understands you, so why do you even want to be around them? Some groups, though, kind of aren't really strict. I've been a member of a cult, and we weren't told not to do all this stuff or whatever. But sometimes it was suddenly hinted like, don't talk about anything cult related or related to our group with anyone else. And if you do, we'll have like a formal study group where we can give them the formal agenda. And, you can read books by other teachers, but the books aren't true. That's what was fed to me. So it was not coming out and isolating people, but it was the subtle, you should want to isolate yourself. You got that? Okay. Let's dive in here to more of what Leanne says. The level of control one accepts is dependent on the level of participation one has within the group. For example, we've all heard about nuns in convents. A nun in a cloistered convent lives with a certain level of milieu control. She has no access to television, radio, the internet, family, friends, or her past life. This is a much higher level of control than a religious sister has living independently as part of the local parish community. Cult leaders manipulate emotions, thoughts, beliefs, and spiritual experiences to produce one result: members' total surrender to their leadership. In other words, people think they have a spiritual experience, a sign they should be a part of this group. The person therefore sees their destiny in being part of this group. They believe being part of the group is a part of a bigger plan or purpose. In reality, the experience is staged. Without such knowledge, those who experience mystical manipulation often do say and surrender whatever is required to the cult leaders. I'm going to pause here. I have talked about this before, where I was in a situation. It was the cult I was with, and there was me, a member, formal member, and another formal member, my roommate, and then some folks we had met who were interested, and we'd all come together for this study group to learn about this group. And I said something. I said, "Oh, I had this experience." Because one of the people we had met said, "Oh, I think something." It was this woman and her daughters, loveliest people, really sweet, and we're like, "Oh, this, really whatever." And so I'd commented that I had a similar experience. The guy next to me, like a 30, 40-year member, whatever, literally corrected me and goes, "No, I think you mean this. I think you meant this experience. You had this." And I knew immediately what was happening, and I just went, "Oh, yeah, whatever." I was thinking of something else. Then he proceeded to tell these people the experience that I had, even though it really wasn't. It was some experience he had made up that was just like everybody else in this group. They all had the same experience, and that's why we're in the group. So he was literally telling this person, "Well, Aaron's had this experience, that's why he's in the group. And if you do this, you'll have this experience, and then that means you're a part of us now." I never had it. I'd had something different. But in the cult, that wasn't allowed. I had to be manipulated. And this wasn't the first time this happened. This is why I was waking up to it. I was on a phone call class. There was like 8 of us all around the United States, and we were reading this book and being asked questions while we read and talked for like an hour once a week or something. And I remember someone turned to a photo in this book, and the photo was of Ramakrishna, matter of fact. And I said, "Oh, I really felt something and I just, spoke up. Oh, I really felt something when I saw this." And very honest. Someone immediately commented, "No, no, you couldn't have felt that. That is so not right." "Oh, well, I did." "Oh, no, no, no. What? Please, let's not." Literally, I was told not to be discussing things like that. So then we turned the page in the book, and the teacher said, "Well, here's a photo. Did you all feel this?" Everyone's like, "Oh, yes, we felt this when we looked at this photo." It was of the teacher of this group. And I kind of went like, "Well, I didn't really feel it, but this other picture really moved me." I was literally shut down, and someone started yelling at me. "Well, no, you're wrong. You can't do that," whatever. Now, I've told this story many times, and I've had members in this group say, "Oh, well, that never happened to you. You're making it up." Why would I make this up? Why would I make this stuff up? This group when you see people talk, they all tell the same story. Well, we all had the same experience. Really? You did? Even though your guru teaches everyone has a unique experience, you all have the exact same experience. And it's exactly the experience your guru says you should have. When I have a different experience because I'm living up to his statement that we all have different experiences, I'm shut down. I didn't last long in the group, as you see already. I was already waking up to this manipulation. And when I left, this mother and daughter who were in my house, I told them I was leaving. And they're like, yeah, we felt things were funny. And we saw that interaction and we talked about it. I was like, what just happened? What did we just witness? What are we getting into? They saw it. So if you're a cult, don't call people out because people are aware of it. Anyways, that's my personal experience here. Let's move on with Leanne. She brings up a famous example. She goes, for example, Kim Jones, the leader of Jonestown, performed clever stage acts to falsify healings and mystical experiences while leading the People's Temple in the 1960s and 70s. Some modern groups claim gold dust or feathers magically appear during services, or that jewels appear in a speaker's pocket while preaching. Analysis proves such items to be fake or staged, but those involved swear by the validity of such experiences. I'm not going to comment on that because you've all seen the stories and the faking, whatever. I only know one guru who has ever manifested things, and no one's been able to debunk that, and that is Neem Karoli Baba. He's the only person I've ever heard who has manifested things. Everyone else, 100% of gurus out there, manifested a bracelet, yet we see a photo of someone handing him the bracelet. Don't follow anyone to manifest stuff. Cults have an us versus them mindset. This means the world is sharply and irrevocably divided between us and them, the cult, who are the pure, and the world, everyone else, the impure. Purity is only possible within the group and nowhere else. And I will pause here and say, from my experience, if you are not a dues-paying member, you're not as pure. If you're just reading the books, well, you can't get the full feeling unless you give us $300 a week. Well, I know you like and you show up once in a while, but it would really be nice if you move in. We could use your help in the kitchen, and then you'll be pure. You see this over and over and over again. You need to be a part of us. You need to join. You need to pay money. You need to move in. You need to give up everything. Then you'll be pure. Then you'll be pure. But until then, you can't get it just by reading. Oh, by the way, once you come in, we're going to have you sell the books to people because the books are going to convert people and make them pure. But it didn't work for you. You needed to move in, and then you have to get them to move in. And unless we're talking about someone who's really wealthy in Hollywood, they don't need to move in. It's okay. They don't need to, because as one guru once said about Governor Brown, what's his name, of California, he can just give money. He's already on such a high level of life that he doesn't need to be a part of the group. Or, if he just gave us a big donation, he doesn't need all this stuff like all you other people do. And when he said no, oh, well, he's totally deluded in Maya. So if you're rich and you don't have to be long, yeah, big red herring. Not a red herring, red flag. There's no mystery here. We know exactly what's going on. Cults also demand strict and difficult standards of various forms of purity. Such are nearly impossible to maintain. These forms of purity may include thoughts and mentalities, study habits, and personal habits such as diet, grooming, attire, rituals. To those in the outside world, the purity requirements and methods might seem strange. Those who fail to remain pure face dire consequences. These consequences range from shunning or group excommunication to external consequences such as hellfire or annihilation. Yeah, you see that over and over and over again. You must do this to be a part of the cult. Oh, by the way, the head of our cult doesn't do that, but because he's an enlightened being, he doesn't. But you have to, even though he never did, actually. He had this enlightenment via a different direction. But you have to do this. And what happens if you don't do these things? Consequences. That's the key with cults. There is always consequences. If I'm in a Stephen King book club and I have to skip a meeting, or I'm a little behind on the reading for this week, Is there consequences? No, they'll let me sit in the study. They won't care. Oh, yeah, catch it up. No big deal. Oh, by the way, we're going to spoil what comes next. They won't kick me out. They won't shun me. They won't do anything. If I'm a fan of Donald Trump and I say, no, I want Vivek Ramaswamy or I want Ted Cruz or whoever, or Tulsi Gabbard, am I suddenly kicked out of the Republican Party? Yep, here's your money back. No, they don't do that. No one shuns me. Maybe they'll be like, why do you like him or her or whatever? And then I try to convince them. There's no punishment. You're not shunned. You're not kicked out. This is one of the points. This is what Leanne is doing here, is actually going over the 8 points without listing them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. She's putting them in here. And she actually has subject headings that I'm not reading here for, because I'm just going through this. All right, let's keep going. For example, Scientologists often attain clear status as they go through various levels of confession using an e-meter. Scientologists believe doing such will purify unconscious memories manifesting as emotional issues and addictions in this lifetime. If they do this enough and spend enough money, as the process requires thousands of dollars, they can obtain purity. And if they don't, they might be kicked out. That's my words. Cults are big on member honesty, even though cult leaders frequently lie to maintain their status. Cult narration states everything you've ever learned is a lie, thus turning the outside world into one big conspiracy theory. The only safe place to learn the truth about everything, boom, you guessed it, within the cult. Cults, however, do not teach one should be open and honest with outsiders. I mentioned this already. I said that when I was in this cult group, I was told not to talk about it with outsiders. In the name of double ethics, the group should be defended at all costs, even if it means the cost is dishonesty. Many groups encourage dishonesty with outsiders because they are seen as the enemy. I'm sorry, I have to do it again. Or we'll try another one. Yeah, that's the better one. This is so true. I have seen blatant dishonesty. Boom. Absolute hypocrisy. Boom. People talking about something that literally goes against their entire belief system just to protect the cult. I have talked about this in previous episodes. I won't go into this right now. Lying is okay. Remember, we mentioned earlier, there's no disassociation you won't owe, but there's also no line these groups won't cross. There's no level to which they won't back up from. Sometimes there is, but sometimes there doesn't seem like it. You see this all the time. Well, I was in the cult, and here's the truth, or don't say this, or don't say that, and don't tell anybody because they're the enemy. And you know what this does to you if you're in the cult? This lying messes your head up. Imagine being a part of something that is not good for you mentally, spiritually, physically. Maybe a little bit sometimes, but a lot of it is very hurtful. And you lie to yourself about it, and you lie to others about it. You lie to everyone around you about it. Maybe you go, hey, you should join this group. It's really cool. You should be a part of this. You're a woman, so honestly, it's going to be really painful down the road because someone likes to get it on with the women. But trust me, I've been there and I hurt and I have so much trauma, but you have to lie about all that. And then one day you're going to explode and leave the cult. The trauma will mess you up and will put you into therapy for years and years and years. We see this all the time, people leaving cults. It's such a process. I went through it, honestly. At one point I wanted to return to the cult because I was so messed up mentally. I'm like, I fucked my life up. I'm going to confess that. I waited long enough and I kind of got through it. It took about 5 or 6 years to actually completely break from the cult because I kept wanting to go back, and because it felt comfortable. It messed me up. And it took a lot of honesty to just break. So don't go there because you're not doing anything for yourself. Imagine, okay, let's say you spent 10 years in a cult and you lie and you lie and you lie and you know you lied, and then you get out. You're going to look back on 10 years going, well, I just lied to myself. I lied to people. What a waste of life. It really is. So don't go into cults. That's what I'm saying. I sometimes wonder if there's people who are in cults, and they've been in cults for so long, and they've lied so much, and they've wasted so much time, and they're so isolated now from society that they stay in the cult, knowing what they're doing, feeling bad, nightmares haunt them at night, but they're so trapped they can't get out of it. They don't know anyone on the outside world, so they don't know where to go. But also, they've lied so much to themselves and to others that if they leave the cult, they would have to come to grips with that. They would have to come to grips with, I lied for 30 years. And that means they would have to come to grips with the idea of, I wasted 30 years of my life. I messed with people. I hurt people. What a horrible person. I was so brainwashed. That's a hard thing to want to confess. Maybe you're 60 years old. It's basically saying, I was in prison for 30 years. It's that same sort of, really, really lost a lot of time that I will never make up. And sometimes I think there are people in cults who then go, oh, yeah, well, I'm just going to stay in the cult because and keep feeding the brainwashing and keep feeding the brainwashing so I never have to come to grips with those ideas. And when I wake up in the middle of the night and my brain is, going off on me and making me feel horrible, I will just read a book, put on some movies, and I don't have to think. I don't have to think because I don't want to really confess what's going on with my life. And here's the thing, and we picked this up in the last few episodes I've done. If you're not being honest about your life, you're really not moving forward spiritually. Actually, not at all. If you can't confess where your problems are, where your faults are, and ups and downs, you're literally stuck. You're not moving forward at all. You're not having spiritual realization because God has never said to anyone, please lie in my name and do not actually deal with any of your faults. Do not deal with your personality or your problems. Just stop right now because God never says that. God never says that. God says, no, I'm going to push you and push you and push you to open yourself up. So if you're closed off and in this cult for 30 years and you don't want to do it, you're not growing spiritually. I have a spiritual seekers class coming up. It will be the 6th one in this series. It's going to be next week when I do it. We're going to be touching on this idea of dealing with yourself and being an intellect and going in so you can move forward. Let's keep reading now. Within the group, one is expected to divulge information one would not normally divulge, including deeply personal information, such as bank accounts. Examples include divulging information for the purpose of deliverance. Such often includes a powerful central figure that berates and criticizes until someone confesses a deadly sin or wrongdoing, even if the individual never did such. If a group's leader claims to be able to absolve sin or perform group purgings in which members confess their faults, such shows notable control issues. Sacred science is the idea that a group proclaims something new, innovative, and different. Such ideas are off limits. Questions and debates are prohibited. Whatever they proclaim could heal the world of all its ills if the world would conform to the cult's specific doctrines. I got something here. Hang on. We're going to do this. I'm sorry. I'm paying for this program, so I'm trying to experiment with all of it. Anyways, I've seen this. I've seen people say, I would love to have you a part of my group or support my group, but you have to be fully in the group. You have to get into it and you have to pay the money. I can't just have you out there supporting me. You have to get all in. This is such a key thing. And this is where the arguments fall apart when you're talking about being a Trumpster. Well, Trumpsters, if you talk to them and don't yell Nazi in their face 200 times, you actually talk to them and don't go, well, you're so mean, why are you this? And you just let them talk. And you talk to 50 different Trumpsters. I will bet you money that they will not give you 50 of the same story. They will tell you different things and different ideas. They will have different views on Trump. And that automatically shows you that they're not all alike, they're not thinking all alike, and they're not all conforming to specific doctrines. Oh, well, we all think Trump is a savior. No, they don't all. Some think he's a loudmouth and he's brash. Now, I have been in groups, in rooms with folks of other political persuasions, and literally everyone said the same thing, and they all agreed on the same thing, and it kind of freaked me out, and never went back. I'm like, wow, you literally all just have the same idea. Kind of like when I was in this room and the person corrected me. The other devotee corrected me. No, that's not what you had. You had this idea, which we all have. And I saw this guy do that to his wife. to. He corrected his wife when his wife had a story. He goes, no, 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 this is what you had. You had this experience that we all had. And then she kind of went, oh yes, because she was full on in it. To continue reading, sometimes cults claim to be a restoration of something ancient or lost, although the restoration concept alone does not make a group a cult. Other cult groups claim that they are exactly as what has been since an ancient spiritual beginning, despite the fact their doctrine has changed excessively throughout its immediate history. An example includes Herbert Armstrong's doctrine on race and spirituality, coined the mystery of the ages. While portrayed as innovative and exclusive, it was essentially a recycled version of British Israelism. So if you go to the article here, she has links to these things. Now, let's talk about loaded language. Loaded language manifests itself in a few ways. Excessive use of jargon repeated frequently, words and terms known only within the group, use of cliches, use of words and terms used by other groups or religions, but with a different meaning. Only those in the group know the difference. Man, I have seen that so much. I have seen cult groups go, well, we say this, this, and this. Oh, really? Oh, no, 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 it has a different meaning. Oh, it does? Yes, because you don't know the true meaning of the word. You see, we use the true meaning, which has been revealed to us. You use the social meaning that isn't actually true, so therefore you need to be enlightened to us and use the word in the proper context. Ironically, when you use the word in our context, our guru is now God, but if we use it in your context, he's a fraud. I've seen that so much. The manipulation of words is one of the greatest things. That's how you control people. That's how our media controls people. This is just, be careful about words. When people start changing the definition of words, you are in for trouble. So Leanne says, loaded language can be particularly confounding to those outside the group. It is hard to understand what a cult means because this gives the impression a group means one thing when really they mean something else. For example, New Agers and those in the New Thought movements use the term Christ not to refer to Jesus as a being, but to the idea of Christ consciousness. When they speak of something like Christ returning, they do not mean the second coming, but the idea that in an era to come, people will realize they are divine themselves. The idea of cliches and repeated terms is also part of many New Age creative visualizations and positive thinking courses. Cults exercise a great amount of control over their members. In a cult, doctrine is individual versus corporeal. This means each person has a single set of principles and all adhere to them in the exact same way without interpretation or variation. My apologies if you can hear the helicopter out in the sky. As I said before on this show, they always seem like to go by when I'm broadcasting and never any other time. There's hospital down the road. One cannot attain the promised level of salvation without principle adherence. Some cults brand members in uniform or matching dress, but this sign is not always present. They may have highly regimented days, routines, diets, or jobs, and all must work together in the same line or fashion of business. Some also reject medical care or specified procedures to the point where members will die or watch their children die. There have been a number of court cases about these issues in modern times. All good things come to an end in cults. Although cults do eventually collapse upon themselves, they always contain an essential three-part doctrine. Those outside the group are wholly evil. The truth found within the group is only fixed and absolute truth. Those outside the group who do not accept the group's truth of the group do not have the right to live. In one form or another, cults believe in a coming showdown. The cult will be spared and the world somehow destroyed. Let me just pause here. I haven't always seen this because I think cults have woken up to this. They know what makes cults cults. But I've seen variations where people say, well, one day everyone will follow us in this group. 30 years later, your group's still the same size. But one day, and we have to be on guard for that day. Yeah. Most teach the world will one day cease to exist through some sort of annihilation. The most infamous example of such is seen in David Koresh's Branch Davidian compound. They believe the governmental siege on the property was a prophetic sign, one foretold by Koresh himself. They expected the world to falter as Koresh rose again, although that never actually came to be. I believe the Branch Davidians are still around. I think there's still a few people who kind of keep it going, which is always a big sign. If your guru dies and nothing happens and everything you said turned out to be wrong and you still keep your group going, this goes back to what I said earlier. You've spent so many years lying to yourself that you don't want to get out of the cult to wake up. You don't actually want any spiritual growth. You just want to live in this comfort zone that you created in lies, and you don't want to break it because that would mean not lying. And that's scary. People don't like to do things which are scary. Change is scary. It really is. I say that personally. No one wants to change. No one wants to do something. No one wants to realize they wasted their life away. And they hold on to things so tight. Oh, no, 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 no. I kind of want to change, but oh, it's so hard because it's so scary and I have to confess that I have done wrong. No one wants to be wrong. Human nature. No one wants to be wrong. Now let's ask a question. What should I do if I suspect someone is in a cult? It's natural to read this article and think of people in your life, maybe even yourself. But before you brand religious groups as cults, get some additional information. There's great dispute over cult identity, especially in the United States. Given we have both freedom of religion and free expression, many are afraid to dive headfirst into accusations against suspicious groups. There are probably many groups that fall by the wayside, appearing and then disappearing quickly. Some groups survive for generations, all the while never being noted as a cult on a large scale. If you want to know, take the time to learn. Do a little research into a questionable group and find out if anyone else has tagged or labeled it as a problem. Many larger cult organizations have support networks, information, and websites for survivors and shunned family members. Be thankful you live in the age of the internet. There are so many help groups for ex-members of this group, ex-members for this group. I couldn't even begin to list all the come to this website where it's ex-members purging themselves. The internet is your resource. It is so good. Everything is there. You can find people. You know, when I grew up and I didn't have the internet, if I couldn't find something in my community, well, I just thought I was weird or something, or I just had to suffer. But now it's so good. So please take advantage of this. Look for those groups. They are out there. Look for those people. They are out there. And there's people who want to help you. I'm one of them. This is why I'm doing this show. I want to help you develop a spirituality that is true, that is strong, that is enlightening, that isn't tearing you down, making you lie, making you stagnant, and not making you comfortable. And I don't mean comfortable in the house behind you, because, you know, I have a comfortable house. I mean, you should always be growing as a person. I want that for you. I'm one of these who I was there. As Leanne continues to write, pay attention to those who felt one way when they were part of a group, but now see their experience differently. While it's true some people are always angry after leaving a group, some groups have far higher numbers of traumatized members than others. If a group's numbers of unhappy ex-members is high, listening to what they have to say might be beneficial. You will find these ex-member groups exist. You will also find the cults fight against them and try to silence them. Oh, you see that so often. I'm going to bring a lawsuit against you so you can't speak. Why? Why don't you want that person to speak? Particularly when they're not really breaking any laws. It's not even slander. They're telling the truth or whatever. Why don't you want them to speak? What's wrong? What's wrong? I mean, no one brings lawsuits against flat earthers because most people don't believe in the flat earth. But I want to bring a lawsuit against an ex-cult member. Leanne says, don't try to reason someone out of a group. Cult involvement is complex. You can't reason someone out of a cult with facts about the group. That's so true. I know it is tempting to try and reason someone out of a group, but cult members are programmed. All they do in response is offer more cult understanding. I think it's important to keep lines of communication open, if at all possible, even if they cut off communication in the end. This means avoid hostility. Try to avoid confrontations and arguments, and avoid discussion about doctrine. The more you display your disapproval, the more they'll think the group is new and innovative. Excuse me while there's a lawnmower going by. So, she says, the more you display your disapproval, the more they'll think the group is new and innovative. Instead instead talk about things outside the group, life, jobs, work, family, news, for as long as such can stand applicable. In an unstated way, remind them life is bigger than the cult. People don't join cults because they are impressed with their stellar doctrine. In reality, most cult doctrine is absurd when you examine it for what it is. People join cults because of how the group makes them feel. Cults give people a sense of belonging, that their lives matter, that they are important, and that they are a part of something special and unique. Even though it is not true, they believe they're finally thinking for themselves. This is 100% true. This is why I got involved in a cult. I didn't like my life. I didn't like myself. I didn't like who I was. I wanted to be somebody different. I had no friends. I had nothing. I even had a shitty relationship in a bad house and I was broke. A cult made me feel special. It made me feel like there was hope. There was hope for me. I had no money, but there was hope after I gave them hundreds and hundreds of dollars, which I got nothing for. But there's hope. I had a sense of belonging because I could show up at this house and there was all these people who were like so happy to see me. They didn't care about me. I never heard from a single one when I left the group. Actually, some of them were so upset that I broke doctrine they wouldn't speak to me again. I've had this happen in a couple groups where, they say they're your friend and then you walk away and you never hear from them again because they're not. Are you really part of this belonging, or is it just sort of Maya? It's just an illusion. And you're just so depressed, you're desperate, and this is there. That's what this is. Before you ask why anyone goes down this road, I don't believe a certain type of person falls prey to a cult. All of us have vulnerabilities in our lives. We all want to belong, to matter, to feel like we are part of something exciting, and we have the need for community. As general society becomes more individualistic and moves away from community lines, all of us seek the hope of being a part of something in different ways. Some want to marry and have families, some immerse themselves in their jobs, and others seek out identity in other ways. Cult members need to know they are loved and matter to people on the outside, even if you don't understand what they are doing. I would also like to add to this, I think people join cults because they want to change the world and they want to make an impact, and they feel like, if I'm in this cult, I'm going to do great things. Okay, cool. What great legacy did Jim Jones leave? David Koresh or others? What great legacy have they left? Or all the children that died because their parents didn't want them to have medicine? How many of those children might have gone on to be great artists, leaders, whatever? Never had the chance, though. Never had the chance. Listen. That's what Leanne writes. Listen. That one is important. We learn a great deal about cults as we monitor the movements and involvement of others. Every classified cult was once considered a new, off-color, odd group until someone noticed a family member or friend who was different after they joined. Listening provides facts for a case where a situation merits further information. A side point to this, cult members want to be heard. They already feel as if the whole world doesn't understand them. Listening proves you're trustworthy. I'm not going to blame early life or family life for cult involvement, Leanne says. I'm sure there are some people who do join cults because they didn't feel loved by their families or because they are at odds with them, but this is not always the case. The world can come in and besiege us, forcing us to be adults and to have to face and deal with realities we don't always like. We've all experienced loneliness, trauma, and emotional distresses that make us wish we had someone to take away our hurt or pain. If a cult hits at the right time and place, anyone can be susceptible. Don't blame yourself, but at the same time, don't try to understand the underlying issues at hand. Also remember, cult life isn't all one way or the other. Individuals in cults have good experiences and bad ones along the way. They form positive memories, attachments to other members, and enjoy aspects of the experience, especially in the beginning. This makes cult departure that much more complicated and requires support and understanding as one processes their experience. Prayer is always a powerful spiritual approach that does make a difference. Also, consult someone with cult knowledge. I am cautious in this recommendation because cult chasers do exist. A cult chaser is an organization critical of any group that is not mainline Protestant or Catholic. Pay careful attention to how a group defines a cult. This is what I said in the beginning of this talk. See if the definition matches the standards of psychological control. This goes back to the 8 points. Do some research on cults, learn about how they work. More importantly, maintain your own spiritual support system to help you and hopefully your friend or family member if they need help on the other side. And Leanne notes down below, if you have any comments, questions, or need additional information from this blog, feel free to reach out to her. You can reach out to her via me if you're watching the show. I'm going to end by reading the bio she put here. I mentioned it at the beginning of this show, but let me touch on it one more time, and this is in her own words. Dr. Leanne B. Marino, PhD, Doctor of Ministry and a DD, also known as the Spitfire, which we discussed once because she got that name from someone else, even though I had called her that name for a long time, is everyone's favorite theologian, leading Gen X, Millennials, and Gen Z, is the apostle of Spitfire Apostolic Ministries. It is a good name. Her work encompasses study and instruction on leadership training and development, typology, pneumatology, conceptual theology, Ephesians 4:11 ministry, and apostolic theology. She is the author of over 35 books, host of the top 20 percentile podcast Kingdom Now, and serves as a founder and overseer of Sanctuary, International Fellowship, Tabernacle, SIFT, and chancellor of Apostolic University. Dr. Marino has over 25 years of experience in ministry, leadership, counseling, and education. And I will put a link to her stuff, her main website, down below after when I put the chapters up for this video. What I love about this article that Leanne has done is the fact that she touches on things which are not exclusive to one religion. As I said, that is the key. When you are defining a cult, it's good here, but it doesn't really work there. Your definition's off. And if your definition is off, you're doing a disservice to yourself. You're doing a disservice to others. So learn the proper definition of the word cult. Cult is not just about Christian or this or New Age or Hindu, whatever. It's a big picture. Of course, those of us who practice Sanatana Dharma with Sri Krishna, we get the double whammy because we have a lot of cults. No question about it. Hardcore cults. Dangerous cults, not so dangerous cults. And then there is the New Age world. And the New Agers have taken so much from Sanatana Dharma and also Neo-Hinduism, maybe more so. They've made it their own, and then they've got their own cults, and people hear them talk about, oh, yoga, this or whatever, and people are like, oh, when you talk about yoga, you must be a Sanatana Dharma group, when really a lot of us be like, no, they're just not with us. They've got their own thing. They've redefined words. They're doing something that isn't from the world of Balat. It's not Sanatana Dharma. It's not Vedic. It's something else. You've just borrowed our lingo. So we get this double whammy of people hear the New Age stuff. They hear this. They see the Sanatana Dharma cult, and we're just like, nah. Sometimes I swear that everyone thinks that Hinduism is just a cult because we're hit from two different groups, our own problems and then outsiders borrowing from us. You don't get this with like Jewish cults. No one ever says, well, David Koresh was a branch Davidian, and the branch Davidian is a branch of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, which is a branch of the Protestant Church, and therefore the Jews look bad. No, the Jews are cut off. They have their own, and they're lucky because no one equates a Muslim group as being representative of the Jews, or a Buddhist group as being represented. But here in Sanatana Dharma, we get it. It's really, really bad. And that's why I wanted to do today's episode. I covered a lot of stuff here. So much stuff. Personal ideas. Told a few bad jokes. Had some bad noises. I hope somewhere you found some value here. If you sat through the whole thing, thank you very much. If you would like to talk about cults, feel free to reach out to myself. Emails down below. Comment on any site that you see this on. Also, feel free to reach out to Leanne. I know she'll be more than happy to talk to you. As I said, she might be a Christian, but she's really cool and she knows a lot of stuff. And you might like what she says. She has a podcast. And yeah, feel free to reach out. I will say this: if you know someone who is in a cult and you want to break them out of it, do not reach out to me. I will not refer you to someone who's going to kidnap. I just don't agree with that. That is breaking the law. No, don't do that. And when those lawsuits have gone up, uh, they've often lost because it is clearly breaking the law. If you need someone saving, I will discuss books with you and we can discuss theology, but don't come to me for that type of stuff. If anyone even does that anymore, I don't know if they do. But that being said, thank you for hanging out with me for this hour. At this point, I'm going to say just, yeah, all the best to you. All the best to you wherever you are, finding the true light and not the darkness, which is what these cults offer. It's darkness. They may have some good things, but don't let 5 good things make you forget about the 20 bad things. And it's so easy to do that. So easy. All right. From me to you, thank you so much for being a part of this. Feel free to comment down below on anything I've said, anything at all. I hope all is well with you. It's been a good day for me. I don't know if I mentioned this earlier. I don't think I did. I've been talking about starting a new business. My girlfriend and I doing it together because we work really well together. We have on Tuesday a meeting with someone to bid on a project. So we're moving forward. That's very, very exciting for us. And that's just so great. So it's been a really good day for me, and that just came through this morning. And then to do this show with all of you on a day where I was literally sitting on my couch sweating to death because it's so warm. To be with you is, I just really enjoy being with all of you. So I hope you are well. I hope your spirituality is well. May God bring blessings to you. Thank you so much for joining me on this. As I said, the next episode I'm going to talk about 4 books, 3 you should investigate on, and 1 no. And they're about cults and touch on some of the stuff we talked about today. So it's sort of a companion piece. And until then, Jai Shri Krishna.